September 29th, 1982. A 12-year-old girl in a Chicago suburb wakes up with a sore throat. Her parents give her a Tylenol capsule, something they've done dozens of times before, without a second thought. Within hours, she's dead. By the end of the week, 6 more people across the Chicago area would die the exact same way, from a medication sitting in millions of households, considered one of the safest products in America. No one had been poisoned by their medicine cabinet before. After this week, everyone would wonder if they could be. The first victim was 12-year-old Mary Kellerman. She took 1 Tylenol capsule for a cold. She collapsed in her bathroom within minutes and was pronounced dead shortly after arriving at the hospital. That same day, 27-year-old Adam Janus died after taking Tylenol for minor chest pain. Hours later, at the same wake held for Adam, his brother Stanley and Stanley's wife Teresa each took Tylenol from the same bottle for headaches brought on by grief. Both died within a day. 2 more deaths from the same household, from the same bottle, on the same afternoon. Over the following days, 3 more deaths followed the same pattern. Mary Reiner, a young mother who had recently given birth. Mary McFarland, a 25-year-old switchboard operator. And Paula Prince, a flight attendant who purchased her bottle from a pharmacy near her apartment, just hours before she died. 7 people, all in the Chicago metropolitan area, all within a matter of days, all linked eventually to one product, Extra-Strength Tylenol capsules. The connection wasn't obvious at first. These were 7 unrelated people, of different ages, in different parts of the city, with no apparent contact with one another. What broke the case open was a single piece of communication between 2 off-duty workers, a firefighter and a paramedic, who had responded to 2 of the deaths on the same day and happened to compare notes. Both households had Tylenol present. That observation reached the Cook County Medical Examiner, who ordered toxicology screening that would not normally have been part of a standard examination. The results showed cyanide, in quantities massively exceeding any conceivable accidental exposure, in capsules from bottles purchased at different stores, manufactured in different facilities, with different lot numbers. This wasn't a contamination at the factory. Someone had purchased bottles of Tylenol from store shelves, opened the capsules, replaced the powder inside with potassium cyanide, resealed them, and returned them to those same shelves for strangers to find. What followed was one of the largest public health emergencies in American history up to that point. Johnson & Johnson, the parent company, issued a nationwide recall of approximately 31 million bottles of Tylenol, at an estimated cost exceeding $100 million. Police drove through Chicago neighborhoods with loudspeakers, warning residents not to consume any Tylenol product until further notice. Investigators worked to trace each tainted bottle back to its point of sale. The bottles had been purchased from at least 6 different stores across the Chicago suburbs: Jewel, Walgreens, Osco, over a period of time, then returned to shelves in locations the buyer had never purchased from. This indicated something specific about the offender's behavior: deliberate movement between locations, purchases made to avoid suspicion, and a tampering process likely conducted somewhere private, away from any of the stores themselves. From a behavioral standpoint, this is significant. The offender wasn't reacting in the moment. Each step, purchase, tamper, return, repeat, across multiple locations, required planning, patience, and an ability to delay gratification across what was likely days or weeks. This is what's sometimes referred to in offender profiling as instrumental rather than expressive violence, harm carried out as a means to an end rather than as an outburst of emotion in the moment. The question investigators couldn't answer was the end itself. What was the goal? One name became central to the investigation within weeks: James W. Lewis. Lewis sent a letter to Johnson & Johnson demanding $1 million to stop the killing, though he later claimed this was an attempt to frame his wife's former employer, not a genuine extortion attempt connected to the murders themselves. He was arrested, convicted of extortion, and served over a decade in prison. He was investigated repeatedly over the following decades in connection with the poisonings themselves, but was never charged with the murders and consistently denied involvement until his death in 2023. What makes this case distinct from many others isn't a satisfying resolution. It's the absence of one. The extortion letter demonstrated someone willing to exploit mass tragedy for financial gain, a willingness to capitalize on the suffering of strangers, in writing, in their own words. Whether that same willingness extended to causing the deaths in the first place was something investigators could never conclusively prove. What we're left with, then, is not a confirmed profile of a confirmed killer, but a behavioral pattern visible in the crime itself, regardless of who carried it out. What does the crime itself tell us, independent of any one suspect? The method, tampering with products on store shelves, with no way to control or predict who the victims would be, reflects something psychologists describe as a profound indifference to individual human outcomes. The victims were not targeted as people. A 12-year-old girl with a cold and a flight attendant buying medicine on her way home were, to whoever did this, functionally interchangeable. Each was simply whoever happened to reach for that bottle first. This kind of indifference, the absence of any need for the victim to be a specific person, is one of the more unsettling features investigators encounter in cases involving anonymous, indiscriminate harm. Within recognized personality frameworks, an extreme deficit in empathy toward unknown victims, combined with planning, patience, and a willingness to cause mass harm for a goal that may have been financial, attentional, or purely about demonstrating capability, overlaps with traits described in antisocial personality patterns and with the dark triad cluster, particularly the dimension often labeled psychopathy, characterized by low empathy and a willingness to disregard the welfare of others entirely. It's worth being precise about what this means and doesn't mean. These frameworks describe a pattern visible in the offense itself. They are not a clinical diagnosis of any named individual, and no one was ever convicted of the murders. What can be said is this: the crime required someone capable of viewing strangers not as people, but as means to an outcome, and capable of carrying that view consistently across multiple locations, over an extended period, without apparent hesitation. The Tylenol murders changed the physical structure of nearly every product sold in America. Before 1982, tamper-evident packaging essentially didn't exist as a consumer expectation. Within months, the Food and Drug Administration introduced new federal regulations requiring tamper-resistant packaging for over-the-counter medications. Johnson & Johnson reintroduced Tylenol in triple-sealed packaging, and within a year, recovered nearly all of its lost market share. A recovery often cited in crisis management studies as a model of corporate transparency under pressure. The foil seals on medicine bottles, the plastic shrink wrap on food containers, the tamper bans on bottled drinks, all of it traces back to 7 deaths in Chicago over a span of days that revealed how little protection existed between consumers and anyone willing to exploit that trust. The crime itself was never solved, but its consequences are something nearly everyone in the world interacts with unknowingly every single day. Next, a self-help empire that secretly branded its members like cattle. You need to see how far it went. Subscribe so you don't miss it.